Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving headfirst into some seriously transformative research by Brené Brown. We're talking vulnerability, courage, and human connection. Look, if you've ever felt that crushing pressure to be absolutely perfect, or that nagging fear of just not being quite enough, well, you are in exactly the right place.
So the source material we're unpacking today is her groundbreaking book, Daring Greatly. And let me tell you, this text literally takes everything we think we know about strength, perfectionism, and imposter syndrome and turns it completely upside down. It's built on years, decades really, of rigorous research into shame and human connection, and it offers us a super practical path to living a much more courageous, authentic life.
Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to kick things off by busting the biggest myth about vulnerability. Then look at our culture of never enough, the shields we use to protect ourselves, how this all applies to leading and parenting, and finally, how to dare greatly every single day.
Because really, life is all about stepping into the arena. Brown draws on Theodore Roosevelt's famous Man in the Arena speech to make this absolutely powerful point. You cannot engage fully with the world if you're just hiding out in the stands, terrified of what the spectators might think of you, right? True connection requires us to be all in, period.
All right, let's jump right into section 1 and tackle this ultimate misconception out of the gate, the myth of vulnerability.
For so long, society has completely equated vulnerability with fragility or weakness. But what's really interesting here is that true vulnerability is actually defined as uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. And think about it. These are the exact same ingredients required for love, for creativity, for innovation, and for leadership. It's not a weakness at all. It's an inescapable measure of our courage and how actively we're engaging with the world.
When we actually contrast these two views side by side, we realize something pretty profound. Think about the last time you saw someone do something genuinely brave. Did it look like weakness to you? No way. When we watch others, vulnerability actually sounds like truth and feels like courage. Yet, crazy enough, when it comes to ourselves, we treat it like this terrible flaw that needs to be hidden. We absolutely have to flip that script.
Moving on to section 2, let's examine the invisible forces driving all our anxieties, the culture of never enough, or the scarcity problem.
You know, we live in what Brown calls a culture of scarcity. Think about it. We wake up in the morning and our very first thought is usually, ugh, I didn't get enough sleep. We look in the mirror and think we aren't attractive enough. We get to work and feel we aren't successful enough. Sound familiar? This scarcity mindset creates this heavy culture of shame and constant comparison. It essentially keeps us endlessly hustling for our worth instead of just living fully in the present moment.
Which brings us to section 3. Let's look at how we actively protect ourselves from that terrifying feeling of scarcity, our protective shields, namely perfectionism and numbing.
I want you to stop and ask yourself a really honest question right now. What do I do when I feel emotionally exposed? Like, what's your go-to move when you feel uncertain? Do you withdraw? Do you get angry? Do you try to micromanage and control everything around you? Your honest answer to this reveals the literal armor you use to shield yourself from the rest of the world.
And one of the most common, everyday ways we wear this armor is through numbing. We often serpentine away from vulnerability by just dulling ourselves. We pack our schedules so crazy full that we literally don't have a second to feel our anxiety. We stress eat, maybe we pour that extra glass of wine, we binge watch 5 straight hours of reality TV, or we rely on just endless cups of coffee so our fear never actually catches up with us.
Now, here is a massive aha moment from the research. We cannot selectively numb emotion. You can't just say, hey, I'm just going to numb the shame and the fear, but I'll definitely keep all the joy and the love. It just doesn't work that way. When we block out the dark, we accidentally dull our capacity for the light, our joy, love, empathy, creativity. We just end up feeling kind of empty.
Another huge, heavy shield we drag around is perfectionism. We somehow convince ourselves that if we can just look perfect and do everything perfectly, we can avoid all judgment and blame. But the truth? Perfectionism is a totally unattainable, destructive trap. Instead of striving for that impossible shield, the research strongly points to self-kindness. Recognizing our common humanity that, hey, everyone struggles and everyone makes mistakes is just a far healthier and honestly braver approach.
All right, let's pivot to section 4. Now that we understand our internal shields, how do we drop them to build courage cultures in leading and parenting?
So a daring leader isn't someone who magically has all the answers or never shows a drop of weakness.
Quite the opposite. A daring leader takes real responsibility for finding the potential in people and processes. They absolutely expect brave work, and they expect tough conversations. In a daring culture, giving honest feedback isn't seen as some personal attack. It's actually a profound function of respect. It essentially tells your team, I value you way too much to not be straight with you.
And this idea applies to the cultures we create everywhere. Whether you're in the boardroom or sitting in your living room, we've got to understand the critical difference between fitting in and belonging. Fitting in is constantly assessing a situation and changing who you are just to be accepted. True belonging, on the other hand, that requires you to be exactly who you are. We have to foster environments where people can actually show up authentically. And that brings us right into the home. The Wholehearted Parenting Manifesto is this incredibly beautiful summary of how we pass courage down to the next generation. It's all about making sure our kids know, deep down in their bones, that they are inherently loved and lovable, exactly as they are. Because, let's be real, our kids do not need perfect parents. In fact, trying to be perfect does them a massive disservice. What they really need are parents who model accountability, who apologize when they mess up, and who practice self-compassion out loud. We teach them courage by letting them see our own vulnerability. It's about saying, I won't do this perfectly, but I will let you see me.
Now, of course, taking off our armor doesn't mean just baring our souls to every random stranger on the street, right? Brene talks about this concept of marble jar friends. Think of a literal jar, where every small moment of trust, every supportive text message, every kept secret adds a single marble. Trust is built in these tiny, everyday moments. By sharing our struggles only with the people who have actually earned our trust, whose jars are full of marbles, we create a safe, healthy space for authentic connection.
Let's bring this all together in Section 5, Daring Greatly Every Day and Practicing Shame Resilience.
Overcoming that scarcity mindset we talked about earlier doesn't mean suddenly achieving an overabundance of things. It means finally finding the feeling of enough. And there's a really clear 3-step process to get there. Step 1, set healthy boundaries. Step 2, practice self-compassion instead of beating yourself up with endless perfectionism. And Step 3, engage with the world from a deep-seated place of worthiness. By following these steps, you actively combat that culture of scarcity. You transition toward what Brown calls wholeheartedness, which is the absolute, unwavering belief that you are, in fact, enough.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this final, vital thought. The emotional exposure of life, it's not optional. It's going to happen. The only real choice you have is how you engage with it. So I challenge you, drop the armor, embrace the beautiful, messy uncertainty of your vulnerabilities, and truly dare greatly in your own life today. Seriously, how will you step into the arena today? Take a second to think about that. Thanks so much for learning with me today. I'll catch you next time.